Welcome to English 4E. This is a grade 12 English class workplace, term 1B. We are on class 3, still working on lesson 1, and we have circled back to key question 1 and 2. Today is November 13th, 2025, and this is Jillian Percy. Here are all the ways to contact us. All right, there we go. The studio number, 1-800-465-7144. The office number is 1-800-667-3703, and my extension is 2211. If I'm not there, just leave a message for me. My email is jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. If you want to reach out to me on Facebook, you can use my handle, gpercywasa. It's a capital G, capital P, E-R-C-Y, space, capital W-A-H-S-A. If you send a friend request, I do not see them on my email, but I do have messages set up to ding my email. So send me a message if you're wanting a response. Let me know what your proper student name is, and let me know what course you're asking me about, because even with the same student, I might have you registered for 2 or 3 English courses, and you're only asking me about one. And this way, when I walk into the conversation, I know what we're talking about. All the classes are recorded and saved to the YouTube channel. There is a school YouTube channel called WASA Distance Education YouTube channel, and there is my teacher YouTube channel, which is also G Percy WASA. There'll be a playlist that says 2526, English 4E. If there's any differences that you're not quite squaring up, then just look at last year's one, 24-25 playlist, okay? All right. How to hand in assignments. Whenever you're sending in assignments, always send it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca if you're in any way emailing it to me. When you do that, the secretary can log that you submitted the work. Other teachers have access to it if, for example, I got sick and someone else had to take over marking. On the paper itself, please make sure to put your full name, the course name, the assignment name and number. If it's a writing assignment, sometimes they will ask for a rough draft, a good draft, or a polished draft. Please label it up at the top so I know what I am marking. It makes a huge difference. Now, there are all sorts of ways to hand in assignments. If you have a learning center in your community, you can talk to the DEC, ask them to scan in your work, and they can email it to me. Hang on to your originals. Never get rid of your originals until the course is over, okay? You can also fax it to me at 1-800-463-7852. Let me know, because we keep it on sleep mode, and I'll turn the fax machine up. If you live in town, you're welcome to just bring the assignments right by the office, and I can photocopy them for you. You can also do your work on the computer and then email it to me as an attachment. Some people like to use Google Docs and share the document with me. When you do that, make sure you allow me to be somebody who can view it and edit it. I promise that I won't edit it, but if I don't have permission to edit, I'm not allowed to print it. And I just find that I can't mark anything just off the computer. I need to be able to physically have it in my hand. Some people do their assignments by handwriting, which is totally fine. And then they take a picture of it and send me the pictures either through Facebook or through email. Only take a picture of one page at a time, right? Sometimes people are doing work in those notebooks and they've got 2 pages at once. I find if you take a picture of 2 pages at once, if I try and zoom in, it just becomes so pixelated I can't read it. And in and of itself, it's too small, I can't read it. Make sure your writing isn't blurry. Don't tilt the phone at a funny angle while taking the photograph, or your writing will be at a funny angle. And make sure to send it as an attachment rather than just share it. For whatever strange reason, I can print it a lot easier when you do that. You can also use a scanner app to take better quality pictures. I use Adobe Scan. It's basically not that much difference than taking a photograph, but it will produce a way better quality document. For one thing, if you take a picture of a page, a lot of times the page will come up kind of gray or brown or yellow, and it can be really hard for me to see the writing against the page. but the scanner app will eliminate that and turn the page really white. So the contrast between the writing and the page is much stronger. It's just a lot easier for me to read. Okay, we are on our plan for week 1. Hopefully we're going to finish lesson 1 today. The first unit, we're kind of talking about some of the very basics, and there's a lot to talk about. So it's possible this may go into next week. We'll just kind of see how fast things go. All right, so we're still in lesson 1, unit 1. Still working on all the same learning goals. I'm not going to read them all over again, but they're there in case you want to see them. Okay. In class 2, we worked on key question number 3. We were supposed to work on 4, but we didn't get there. We looked at nouns, verbs, articles, and gerunds. And then today we're going to be working on pronouns, prepositions, conjunctions, adjectives, and adverbs. If we have time, we may learn about punctuation. We're going to put what we learned into identifying parts of speech for key question 1. And then if we have time, we'll learn about how to create a paragraph that utilizes them to communicate our meaning, and that would be key question number 2. Okay, so we talked a lot about nouns. Pronouns, like we talked about, they replace nouns. And a lot of times people aren't aware there's a lot of pronouns. So we're going to kind of split them into groups and talk about them. The biggest group that's kind of important to us is the subject pronouns. And these are the ones that can replace a noun that is the subject of a sentence, okay? They are going to appear in front of a verb. They can be singular, like only one, or plural. So the singular pronouns are I, you, he, she, or it. The plural ones are we or you plural or they. So you plural, like if a teacher was talking to a class and said, you need to take out your books now, she's meaning you like everybody. In English, we don't have 2 separate words from that. Sometimes in the South, you'll hear people say you all, or sometimes you'll hear people say like yous, but technically we just say you. So here are some examples of subject pronouns in a sentence. He ate some pizza. He is the subject pronoun. Sorry, hang on, there we go. I am hungry. I is subject pronoun. It is windy. It is a subject pronoun. Now, a lot of times when people see the word it, they don't want to think of it as a subject because they can't picture anything. So instead, they'll tell me windy is the subject, but windy is not a subject, okay? It has to be in front of the verb for one thing, and here's our verb, right? We are leaving soon. They were late for work. Okay. Object pronouns are not going to come in front of the verb. They are going to come after the verb because they receive the action or they are acted upon. They cannot be used as the subject of a sentence. They can also be singular or plural. Singular, me, you, him, her, or it. Plural, us, you, or them. And you can see you is the same whether it's a subject or an object. I don't know why. Okay. So here, Jason bugged me. I couldn't say me bugged Jason, okay? I can't use me as the person doing the acting. Can I go to the store with you? The teacher told him to do his work. Give the cookies to her. Dad was waiting for us. The police told them to wait in the car. And you can see in most cases, they're either right after the verb or shortly after the verb, okay? Then we have reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns are when the person who's doing the action is also the person who's receiving the action, okay? Again, they can be singular or plural. Sorry, one of them is kind of wobbled over there. Singular would be myself, yourself, herself. Oh, hang on. I know I took that out, but it found its way back in there. Himself, itself. Plural is ourselves, yourselves or themselves. Remember the other day how we talked about F as a singular in English turns into a V and then we add the ES? So you're seeing that in play here. Um, we're going to talk about these a little bit. Susan made herself some lunch. So she's the one making it, but she's planning to give it to herself. My dad fixed the car himself. We painted the house ourselves. So some of these are being used for emphasis. So like if I had said, my dad fixed the car, period, that would make sense. But I'm saying like himself, like all by himself. We painted the house ourselves. The dog broke its chain all by itself. The kids took themselves to the mall on their bikes. I took myself shopping on my payday. So you're the one doing the action and you're the one receiving the action, or it's extra emphasis. Oh, I got that already. Okay, possessive pronouns. These are ones that we use to show that something belongs to something. So if I were saying, this is David's shoe, I add an apostrophe S. But if I'm already using a pronoun, we just change the type of pronoun. Again, we still have singular and plural. Singular is my, your, her, his, or its. Plural is our, your, and their. Some examples are, I brought my favorite markers to art class. Did you get your coat that I dropped off with your brother? My sister got her birthday money from grandma. The teacher wore her best suit for graduation. The dog licked its dish clean. We brought our canoe to the cabin. The class was glad when their flowers grew so well. Okay. An important point about using pronouns. Because pronouns are kind of general, like he could be anybody, right? It could be your teacher, your dad, your doctor, your brother, your baby. Because they're so general, it's really important when we use them that it's clear in the sentence who or what the pronouns are referring to. So, for example, if you were writing a paragraph with several different men in it, you would need to be very careful about using the pronouns he, him, his, or himself, because it might not always be clear which man you're referring to. Obviously, the same thing would apply if you were writing a paragraph about several different women. If you think the reader might be confused, it is best not to use the pronouns and just stick to names or nouns as much as possible. It's not that it's ingrammatical or wrong. It's that you have to remember the key point about writing is that you're communicating with another human being, even if you can't see them right there. And if you think that person's going to get confused, then you should do them a favor and make sure to write it more clearly. Now, pronouns must agree with or basically be the same as the noun they're replacing in three different ways: number, point of view, and gender. The noun that it's replacing is referred to as the antecedent, like it comes before it. And the antecedent and its pronouns must match, basically. So what do we mean if I say by number? So if the noun is singular, then the pronoun must be singular. If the noun is plural, then the pronoun must be plural. Each of the four types of pronouns have both singular and plural options. So if I start off the sentence that I was talking about, I went to the concert, I couldn't suddenly switch to our or we or us because I started off saying it was one person and all of a sudden I'm changing it to more than one person. So that's confusing and it sounds like I've gotten kind of mixed up, right? All right. Pronouns must also always use the same point of view as the noun. This one I find is usually hard to mix up, except sometimes what'll happen is you'll be talking about one thing, maybe you go on and do some writing and then you add some stuff back in and you forgot which point of view you were writing in. There are 3 points of view in English. There's first person, second person, or third person. And each of these will also have singular versus plural formats. So first person is I, me, my, or myself. So it always sounds like I am just talking. Or if a group of people were talking or writing, we, us, our, and ourselves. Second person is when you're talking to somebody else. You, your, yourself, or you, your, yourselves. Okay. Those ones sound pretty similar from singular to plural, other than the reflexive one. And then third person is kind of the tricky one. In singular, I've got he, him, his, or himself, or she, her, her, herself, or it, its, and itself. Now in plural, every single one of those becomes they. They, them, their, and themselves. We don't have a plural that shows gender, and often we use he or she versus it because we're showing animate objects versus inanimate objects like rocks or trees. We don't have a separate plural form for that. Some languages do, but English doesn't. Okay? Now, the last way that nouns and pronouns must agree is in gender, which is controversial with some people, but we are all adults here, right? So we can discuss this in a civilized manner. Traditionally, it was considered important that if the noun was male, then all the pronouns should be male. And if the noun was female, then all the pronouns should be female. Currently, some people who consider themselves non-binary or trans are choosing to refer to themselves with alternate pronouns, like they, them, their. It's probably the most common one, but there's some other possibilities. There's ze, z, her, hers, or z, zer, zers. Generally, the new rule regarding gender is to be sure that you're being respectful and also consistent. So if someone requests that you use a certain set of pronouns, then you should do so because that's what's considered respectful. Now, once you've chosen or they've chosen to refer to themselves with a certain set of pronouns, stick to that set throughout the writing in order to be consistent and so that your reader isn't confused. Right? So if you start off talking about he and then switch to her, it sounds like somebody new has come into the room or somebody new is in the sentence. So you have to kind of pick one gender and stick with that, whichever it is, or the neutral gender that we're talking about. There is also a third neutral gender they don't talk about very often these days, but it's the one where we say one. Kind of sounds a little bit old-fashioned. Like if I were saying, one must remember to, I don't know, shine one's shoes. One is singular but gender neutral. Okay, it just isn't used as commonly as it used to be. Okay. Now, the other thing to remember is in any one sentence, there could be multiple pronouns that are replacing or referring back to the original main noun. So if I said, Becky said that she had lost her mitts during the game, she is referring back to Becky. Becky's our antecedent. Her is also referring back to Becky and is also the antecedent. Now, like I said, let's say I was talking about a whole bunch of girls and I was worried that it would be confusing. I would say that Becky said, yes, it's tricky. Becky said that she would be fine. Had lost Becky's mitts, her own mitts. It's tricky, right, when you want to use the nouns. So just be cautious when you're writing. When the people voted, they chose whomever they thought would benefit them most. So we've got they, and them, and all of them are referring back to people. Now, this is a tricky one. If I had introduced any other plural noun, I would have to be careful that people didn't get mixed up with all the theys and thems. Okay? Sometimes you can solve it by using the noun. Sometimes you can solve it by making a shorter sentence. Okay? Okay. So here we've got, does the pronoun agree with its antecedent or not? So remember, agree just means match. So Mrs. Wyndham bought his new car home from the dealership. Does that agree or disagree? It disagrees, right? When my sister goes away from college, I will miss her. That agrees, right? They're both singular, same, well, yeah, same point of view because my sister is third person and so is her, and then same gender. My brother drove themselves to the movies. So no, because brother is singular and themself is plural. So that one doesn't quite match up. My sister and I painted the house ourselves. So my sister and I are working together. So that is a plural subject. So ourselves does agree. Okay. Sometimes people might get mixed up by the word I and think they have to use my, but because you're talking about yourself and your sister, ourselves is fine. The train stopped on their tracks. So does that match up? No, because train is singular and there is plural. So that does not agree. The car lost its power steering. Both singular, because remember, its here is acting as a possessive. It's the power steering that belongs to the car. So it's not plural. So yes, it does agree. That's one that can sometimes trip people up. If I am not home when you arrive, please leave my package in the mailbox. So same person, the I, first person, um, same number, singular, and there's no gender with first person. So yeah, agrees. Okay. So key question number 4 is all about antecedents and pronouns, which we just talked about. It is originally 5 marks in your book. When I was looking at it and thinking about how to mark it, I really felt like I should revise that to 10 marks. So that is how I'll be marking it from here on, okay? The assignment wants you to write 5 sentences of your own that will show your understanding of antecedents and pronouns. Underline the antecedents and pronouns. Make sure that the pronouns agree or match their antecedent in number, point of view, and gender. So here's an example. My mother is happy when she gets to go camping. Okay. Now I've got to do the underlining. Sometimes I have people hand me in beautiful sentences and they lose a good chunk of their marks because they didn't underline. So who is getting referred to here? My mother. So I'm going to underline her. When she gets to go camping, there's nothing else that's referring to the mother. Mother's the antecedent. She is the pronoun referring to the mother. Does it agree? Okay, so she is, and mother is singular. There's only one mom. Point of view, they're both being talked about in third person. And gender, they're both female. So, yep, that one is correct. Okay. So, for this question, your goal is to create complete sentences that use pronouns and antecedents and to make sure that your pronouns agree with your antecedent in name, point of view, and gender. Okay? So every sentence has to have at least one noun and a pronoun that refers back to it. Half a mark for that. You have underlined the noun antecedent and every pronoun that refers to it. If you use 2 or 3 pronouns in your sentence that refers to it, they all have to be underlined or you're going to lose marks. That is a half mark per sentence. All the pronouns in the sentence agree with or match the noun they refer to in name, point of view, and gender, 1/3 of a mark for each of these items in each sentence. Okay? Okay, so we're going to move on to some more vocabulary terms and concepts. You can take a look at the page for a second while I grab a quick drink of water here. Okay, we're talking a little bit about phrases and clauses. Okay, so how are those different? A phrase is a group of words that's working together, but it does not create a complete sentence on its own. So I could say, the black and white fence. It's a phrase, not a whole sentence. The delicious hot wings. It's a phrase, it's not a whole sentence. A clause has all the same elements as a sentence. It has a subject and a verb. It could be a sentence. However, sometimes it might not be a sentence on its own. It might be part of a larger sentence, and it might not express a complete thought, which we'll talk more about in a minute. So a clause must have a subject and a verb. If it doesn't have that, then it's only a phrase. Okay. We talked this about a little bit yesterday. There are only about 8 or 9 parts of speech. Each word in any sentence can be put into one of those 8 or 9 categories. Okay. Now, some words can belong to more than one category, depending on what its job or meaning is in the sentence. For example, a word like bat could be a noun if it's naming the animal, or it could be a verb if it means the action, like I'm batting something away from myself. So the bat flew into the cave. At that point, it's acting as a noun. I batted the wasp away from my face. There, it's acting as a verb. Okay. So we're going to look at some of the other parts of speech and try and identify them in a paragraph at the very end. So modifiers. 2 of the parts of speech we're going to be looking at work as modifiers. Modifiers just mean they modify, they alter, they change, or they describe the other words. There are 2 types. There are adjectives and there are adverbs. Adjectives are words that modify or describe a noun or a pronoun. They might describe the noun's size, the shape, the color, the number or amount, the place of origin, like where it's from, what material it's made out of, its age, what is its purpose. It might express an opinion about it or be describing a quality of it. So some examples of adjectives are things like big, tiny, circular, blue, 5, German, wooden, ancient, picnic basket, tasty or terrible. So picnic basket, I want to point out, picnic is a purpose adjective describing the type of basket it is, right? Adjectives might be placed right in front of the noun they are describing. Like, so for example, if I had the angry old man yelled loudly, they are both describing the man. But sometimes the adjectives might come after a state of being verb, like in this sentence. The man was old and angry. Okay, so it's not always right in front of the noun. Another example could be she was beautiful. Here we got an adjective, a pronoun, and we're describing her with the adjective beautiful. Okay, adverbs are another type of modifier. They modify or describe a verb, that's their primary function, but they can also modify adjectives or other adverbs. They can describe when, where, how, or why an action is performed, and they can come in front of or after the verb they're modifying. So adverbs that answer how, like how did he do it? Carefully, slowly, quickly, gently, deeply, sweetly. The man walked slowly to work. How did he walk? He walked slowly. Where? Up, down, right, left, inside, outside. Um, the frog jumped up. Where did he jump? Up. When? These are the ones I find are the adverbs people don't recognize because they're just used to them being time words. And sometimes these can be a noun, okay? Sometimes they're acting as an adverb, sometimes as a noun. It depends on the sentence. Never, always, sometimes, tomorrow, yesterday, monthly. She never cried when she was sad. So never is describing when she cried. When did she cry? Never. Why? Why is going to be a tricky one. Here you're going to have words like because, thus, consequently, since. These ones are not going to be like a one-word phrase. They're going to have a whole reason, like um, she was angry because someone stole her car. So it's kind of introducing a whole other clause or phrase to the sentence. Sometimes adverbs are used to make another adverb or another adjective more strong, and these are called intensifiers. Adverbs that are acting as an intensifier usually come in front of the adjective or the adverb they're describing. Some examples of intensifier adverbs are things like very, extremely, to, barely, scarcely, hardly, fairly, so, really, deeply, rarely, or often. So if I say the man was very old, okay, very is an adverb and it's describing the word old, which is an adjective. So how old is he? He is very old. It's intensifying it, like he's more old than old. He tiptoed extremely carefully across the creaky floor. So extremely is modifying or describing the word carefully, which is an adverb. Again, my apologies. This one should say adjective. Okay? So that's how you can see them get used as well. All right. The next two parts of speech are parts of speech that kind of connect things. Okay? One category is conjunctions, and the other category is prepositions. And remember how I mentioned that some words can belong in two different categories? This is one area that's a little bit tricky because there are words that might act as a conjunction or might be acting as a preposition, kind of depending on how it's being used in the sentence. Okay, so prepositions. Hang on. Prepositions connect a noun or a pronoun to the rest of a sentence. When they do that, they also show the relationship between that word and the rest of the sentence. The relationship might be explaining the location or the direction, explaining what kind of instrument or tool is being used, explaining time or measurement, explaining the origin or the agency of a noun, explaining the cause or the reason, or conveying belonging or ownership. Prepositions are always going to come in front of the noun or the pronoun that they are connecting to the rest of the sentence. Some examples of prepositions are things like at, on, by, near, up, right, of, from, via, or with, over, under, in front of, across from, due to. There are so many prepositions in English. Anyways, the army marched over the bridge. Over is the preposition and it's connecting the noun, the bridge, to the rest of the sentence. And it's giving me like a location word, right? She completed the painting with a palette knife. A palette knife is being connected to the rest of the sentence, and it's showing what instrument was used to complete the painting. He wanted to buy a pound of ground beef. Ground beef is your noun, of is your preposition, and this is a measurement one. The pound is of ground beef. School was closed due to the blizzard. So due to is your prepositional phrase, and the blizzard is the noun that's being connected. Put the milk beside the butter. The butter is your noun, and it's being connected to the rest of the sentence and showing the location. Now here's one where it's going in front. During the winter, bears will hibernate. So the winter is being connected to the rest of the sentence, bears will hibernate, and it's showing you the time. It's giving you the time frame. Okay? All right. Conjunctions. Hang on a sec. Conjunctions are a word or a phrase that joins two or more words or groups of words. They can join phrases, clauses, or sentences. The connections can also show a variety of relationships, just like prepositions did, such as time, sequence, contrast, comparison, joining or addition, choice, reason, or cause. Some example of conjunctions are things like and, but, or, however, then, so, or also. Now there are three different types of conjunctions. There's coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, and correlative conjunctions. And I'm not positive I'm saying that right. I feel like I just tumbled over that one. All right. So coordinating conjunctions. These can join words together, phrases together, or clauses or sentences together. And there are only 7 of them, okay? We've got for and nor, but, or, yet, and so. So he loved going to the movies and he liked playing baseball. Here they've joined 2 sentences. He wanted to go shopping, but he was out of money. Here they joined 2 sentences. She was anxious for the train was late. This is also joining 2 sentences and it's explaining the reason. Why is she anxious? Because the train is late. I was hungry, so I bought a pizza. This is also joining in a sentence and it's showing you again another reason. Why did I buy the pizza? Because I was hungry. I could eat hot dogs or hamburgers. Here we're just joining 2 words. She was not a fan of wrestling nor of martial arts. So I'm going to put P for phrases there, right? Of wrestling versus of martial arts. He loved her, yet he was afraid to tell her. And there we're back to sentences again. Okay, subordinating conjunctions. These are used to join an independent clause to a dependent clause. In other words, they can join a clause that expresses a complete thought to a clause that is expressing an incomplete thought. So a clause, remember, has a subject and a verb, and it can stand on its own or it might not stand on its own, right? If it can stand on its own, then it could be a sentence all by itself. That's only if it expresses a complete thought. But if it doesn't express a complete thought, then we call it a dependent clause because it has to depend on something else, okay? It can appear at the beginning of the sentence or it could be at the end of a sentence. And here are a few examples. Before I go out to the movies, I need to finish up my homework. So before is the subordinating conjunction, and the subordinate or dependent clause is that whole chunk that is right attached to the word before. I am ready to go whenever you are. Whenever is the subordinating conjunction, and the whole phrase whenever you are is the dependent clause or the subordinate clause. It means the same thing. Her mom was angry because she stayed out too late. So because is the subordinate conjunction and it's in the front of the entire subordinate clause. This is not an exhaustive list of subordinate conjunctions. There's lots more, but this is a sampling of them and it shows you some of the relationships. So it could show you time relationships like when, before, after, until, during. It can show you cause, things like because, since, so that, in order that, due to. Comparing, when comparing 2 things, just as, than, rather than, as if. Concession is like when you're conceding something, like although, even though, whereas. Condition is when you're like you're putting a condition on something, like, yeah, I'll be happy to help you out on Saturday if I don't have to help my mom. Or I'm hoping to go to the movies unless I don't have enough money, right? We can also use even if or in case. We can also describe the place, where, wherever, everywhere, anywhere. And then purpose. Purpose and cause are very similar. So that, in order that, lest, in order to. Okay. And then we've got correlative conjunctions. These conjunctions always work in pairs. Okay. They are not necessarily joining up complete clauses. They can also join up words or phrases. And the items that they join should have equal value. In other words, they're joining a word to a word, a phrase to a phrase, a clause to a clause. And these types of conjunctions are placing a lot of emphasis on the relationship between the 2 elements. So both and. Michael can both read and write. Not only, but also. Not only Mary, but also Gabriel is from Italy. Either or. I can have either cola or tea. So as. Her story isn't so boring as theirs. No sooner than. We had no sooner gone to bed than the phone rang. The more, the more. The more you can dream, the more you can do. So and that. He felt so angry that he threw all the stuff away. Hardly and when. I had hardly closed my eyes when she came. Such and that. She is such a beautiful girl that everyone likes her. Neither nor, neither George nor his brother is very tall. Whether or. He must do it, whether he likes it or not. As and as, he's not singing as loudly as he can. Rather and than, I would rather go out than stay at home today. And scarcely when, scarcely had I gone to bed when the doorbell rang. Okay, so key question number 1 is identifying the parts of speech. This is worth 5 marks. Read the following paragraph and and identify the underlined words. Use lined paper or the computer for your response. So what I'm meaning there is there's not enough room here. Please don't just try and write in very tiny letters. I guarantee you I will not be able to read it. My eyes are not that great. Okay? So I will read it to you and look at. So if it says sunny morning, you have to tell me what sunny stands for and what does morning stand for. The one difference would be the word Wannaman Lake. That is a place name, and so it is acting together. I don't think there's another one like that. So it was a sunny morning in late March when Terry and his friend Joe left Kingfisher Lake by snowmobile to travel to Wannaman Lake. They quickly covered the distance between the two communities and hurried to the home of Corey, an old buddy of theirs. Corey works as a filing clerk at the nursing station in Wannaman Lake and regularly writes memos and emails during the week. He also assists with developing monthly reports. Since this was a Sunday, however, they would have time to spend together. They talked and laughed for about 5 hours. Then Terry and Joe returned home, happy but exhausted. So you can do nouns, pronouns, adjectives, verbs or participles, adverbs, prepositions, and conjunctions. There are no interjections. We didn't really talk about them. Interjections are kind of like one word where you're really excited, like help, no, um, ow, that kind of thing. We don't really use them a whole lot in academic writing, so I didn't really cover them. Sorry. So, yeah, here's an example. So it was a sunny morning in late March. I've got to figure out what is sunny, what is morning. They're not the same thing. What is late? What is March? They're two separate things. Terry. Now, his is one and friend is one. Okay. I skipped over snowmobile because I ran out of room. Remember, Wannaman Lake is one word, right? So what job is Sunny doing, right? It's describing what kind of morning we're having. Okay, well, the moment I know it's describing something, I know it's either an adjective or it's an adverb, right? So it's describing the morning. Morning is a noun, so it has to be an adjective, right? Because adverbs don't describe nouns, right? It's not their job. Morning, we just said, was a noun. Now, I'm not going to do the rest of them. That just kind of got you started, okay? One important point to keep in mind, we've talked about this already, but a certain word can be more than one part of speech. If I look at the word protest, I can use it as a verb, like I will protest if you make us work over our lunch break. But it can also be a noun, like a concept or a thing. He went to the Black Lives Matter protest. It's an event. It's a thing. It's an idea, I guess, almost in a sense. Um, some tricky words for this. Sometimes I've seen students, they look at a word ending and use that as a key to what part of speech it might be. And sometimes that'll work, but other times a certain ending might be used with two different parts of speech. For example, The letter S is sometimes added to a singular noun to create a plural noun, like one train can become two trains. However, we also add S to the end of singular verbs when it is the third person singular. And train can be a verb, right? I'm going to train like you're going to exercise in a sense. I train for the race. You train for the race. He trains for the race. She trains for the race. The student trains for the race. Now, those aren't nouns because they're acting as a verb. So don't let yourself get mixed up with that kind of stuff, okay? Um, there are quite a few nouns that can also be used as a verb. Things like plan, mark, contest, tip, skate, or bloom, stamp, slice, float, act, nail, dump, jam, dip, run, stop, spring, or light. So I am going to the garbage dump. Is that a noun or is it a verb? It's clearly a noun. It's being used as a place, right? You can dump the clothes on the bed. That's an action. That's a verb. A mountain goat can spring up the hill with ease. Okay, it's an action, right? It's doing that. Spring is just around the corner. So spring is a noun here. It's the season, right? Hang on a sec. Okay. The other one we talked about yesterday was gerunds, and that is a word that ends in ing is often a verb, okay? But sometimes people think it's always a verb, and that is not true, right? If I say, I am running to the store, yep, it's a verb because I'm showing an action. The fish is swimming away from the boat. It's an action. The student is writing a test. Those are actions, right? But if I said running is a great way to get exercise, I'm no longer telling you an action. I'm giving you the name of an activity, right? If I said I am great at swimming, I'm telling you what sport I'm good at. I'm giving you the name of the sport. I'm not telling you what kind of action I'm taking. So be cautious of those in there. Okay. Um, so the rest of this stuff is the information you need to know in order to be able to do key question number 2 correctly. Okay. And I'm trying to make that difference so you understand where we're going to. Simple sentences. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought and contains a subject or verb or a predicate. A subject is who or what the sentence is about. This will be a noun or a pronoun, and the noun or pronoun must come in front of the verb, right? In English, word order matters. That's not true in all languages, but in English it matters. The predicate must contain a verb plus any other words that relate to that verb. So here are some examples below. Sam threw the baseball quickly. Sam is our subject, and threw the baseball quickly is our predicate. Here is our verb. The predicate often starts with the verb. It doesn't always, but it often does. The black and white dog, that's our subject, barked at the mailman. Barked is our verb. At the mailman is explaining who he's barking at. They were running late for work. They is our subject. Were running is our verb. The old Walker house looks spooky at night. Looks is our verb. Old Walker house is our subject. Looks spooky at night is our predicate. Now, there are 4 main types of sentences, and you're welcome to use any of these types in your paragraph. There is a declarative sentence. That's the basic sentence that tells you a fact or opinion. Like 90% of our writing uses this one, and it follows that subject predicate pattern. It's going to end in a period. It is a cold day. It is our subject, and is a cold day is our predicate. Exclamatory. An exclamatory sentence shows strong emotion like excitement or anger or fear, and it's usually going to follow that subject predicate pattern. It's going to end with an exclamation point. If it doesn't, it's not an exclamatory sentence. Exclamatory sentences must use exclamation points. We are having a baby, and they sound excited, right? Then you've got imperative. Imperatives are commands or instructions, right? The subject is always considered to be you, right? We don't always include it in the sentence because we've used it so often we just don't bother using it anymore. It's implied. An imperative sentence can end in a period, or it could end in an exclamation point, depending on how much emotion is going on. So here I'm showing you the word you is in brackets to show it's implied. We wouldn't really put it. I wouldn't write the word you there. I'm just showing you that it's there. Mix the sugar in with the eggs. Those are instructions. Give me back my money. There I'm excited, so I put an exclamation point. But it's still an imperative because I don't have that subject. I've dropped it. Okay? Then we've got interrogative. Or, sorry, I'm saying that badly. Interrogative. Interrogative sentences ask a question, and they are always going to end with a question mark. In English, they have to. Okay? They might follow the subject plus the predicate pattern. If I say, who is the new mayor? Or where did the cat hide? Who and where are acting as the subject for these. Okay? But questions can also follow what we call the inverted format, where the verb comes first and is followed by the subject. So if I said, do you want some ice cream? You is my subject, and my verb is do. Have you heard about the concert? You is my subject, have is my verb. Can we stop at the store for milk? We is my subject, can is my verb. That's why we call it inverted, because we're flipping the subject and the verb their place, because they're not in their normal place. Oh, and I'm just looking at the time and realizing we are out of time. So we will finish discussing this on Monday. Okay. Have a good night, and I will talk to you guys later on.